Hello, I'm Marcia Ribot.
I am Patricia Rodriguez.
And together, we are
Little Soldier Productions.
We are foreign artists
based in the UK.
and over the last 10 years, we have made and toured work all over the world.
We love it, but it's not always been easy.
So we have invited our friends and collaborators who share the same passion.
And we have asked them what it's like for them and how they make it happen.
We want to know what gets lost in translation
What can't they travel without?
and their best border control stories.
Welcome to They Make It Happen.
A series of online conversations about the ins and outs of making and touring work internationally.
Kirsty Housley is a director, writer and dramaturg. Her work has twice been nominated for the Stage Award for Innovation, winning in 2017 for The Encounter with Simon McBurney at Complicite. In 2021, the digital production of Rich Kids, A History of Shopping Malls in Tehran, was selected for the Sundance Festival New Frontiers category.
Recent work includes Jekyll and Hyde by Evan Placey for the National Theatre, Some Old Street for Hampstead Theatre, Extinct by April de Angelis for Theatre Royal Stratford East, The Long Goodbye with Riz Ahmed for Manchester International Festival, Mephisto at the Gate Theatre, Rich Kids, A History of Shopping Malls in Tehran, and The Believers Javaad Brothers, Tao of Glass with Phillip Glass for Manchester International Festival,
Avalanche, A Love Story at the Barbican and Sydney Theatre, Misty at the Bush and West End, The Encounter for Complicite, I'm a Phoenix Beach for Bryony Kimmings and the BAC, and Myth for the RSC.
Kirsty is currently an RSC Digital Fellow.
So, welcome everyone. Hello, Kirsty. We are today with Kirsty Housley and, Marcia Ribot, Patricia Rodriguez, myself. So, we're welcoming Kirsty today as part of our online talks. They Make It Happen. We are talking about international theatre, about the process of making theatre, and just talking to very, very interesting people. And one of them is Kirsty. So, hi, Kirsty, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's lovely to see you.
Yeah, lovely to see you too. Thank you for taking time to speak to us. One of the first questions that we ask to all our guests is to tell us a little bit of their own story about how they became theatre makers on their own words, because we have all these bios at the beginning of the talks. So yeah, how Kirsty decided to enter this well of sacrifices and craziness and beauty and madness.
I feel like it's such a long story now because I'm so old. So when I think back to the beginning of it, I'm like, oh, that was like half my lifetime ago. So I have to try a bit harder to remember it now. So I'm from Southampton.
Uh-huh.
There are a couple of theatres in Southampton, like touring musicals and stuff. So when I was a kid, I hadn't really seen any theatre. I saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show and I saw Buddy the Musical. Like it was that and Panto and youth theatre. So that was like the most experimental work that I saw, was like the stuff made by the kids at the school I was at, but like 5 years older than me. So I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. This is so exciting. They're telling all these stories and it's really imaginative. And so I kind of started, I basically, even when I was a kid, made more theatre than I saw. I wasn't like an audience member. I was a participant. But I think that's what happens for a lot of people, actually. And I just really loved it. So I just kept doing it. So, I did it for GCSE, I did it for A-level. I went to university and everyone around me was kind of telling me that you can't really do that for a job. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not really it's not really what you can do as a job, like have a backup plan, So I went off to get a degree, but because I didn't think I was going to do it as a job, I thought, right, well, I better keep doing this for as long as I can, because obviously it's not going to be my job, but I can get another 3 years out of it by doing it at university. So I went to the University of Warwick. It was a long time ago, so that you didn't have to pay fees. I got grants, so I basically got paid to go to university, which I'm really sorry if anyone is listening to this and is below the age of 40. Sorry, it sucks. It should be free.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So then I kept doing it, and was kind of like starting to make stuff. Most of it was terrible, but I really liked making it. I didn't know anything about it particularly. I think really it was at kind of university that I started to figure out that there were directors and there were, designers, and that it was this whole kind of whole world of different things that you could do. I definitely didn't know what a dramaturg was. I wasn't doing any writing. I felt really nervous about that. I felt like I didn't have any stories to tell, so I just didn't want to say anything. I just thought I'll just direct other people's stuff. So I started directing, and then when I left, I actually had a friend who was doing comedy stuff at the Canal Cafe, and he needed someone to do his admin and his marketing. And that was kind of like, that was just what I needed, because I'm from Southampton, so I moved back in with my parents after I graduated, and I was working in a newsagent, and I was working in call centres, and I was just thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. And then this guy called me and said, do you want to come and do some work? So I started doing that, and then that was when I started to sort of make stuff myself. So I suddenly, I had this space, and then I went on to the Etc. in Camden, and I had a venue basically when I was like 22. I don't know quite how I managed to swing that. Yeah. I started doing admin and then started making some stuff, and then this other thing came up, and I managed to persuade this guy to just let me run this fringe theatre.
Yeah,
I was getting paid a bit of money, and I had a space, and so I just started making things. And I didn't really know what I wanted to make. It took me a long time to articulate this, but I was reading all of the plays, like all of the new writing, and I'd be reading these plays going, yeah, but what else? Like, it's really interesting, this story of a family and a person, but it was like that you're not really saying anything about the world. And so it felt like I was reading plays that had been written like 2 years ago, but they weren't speaking to the world in any way. So I just started making my own stuff, really. And again, a lot of it was terrible, but I really enjoyed it. And sort of slowly discovered what to do with people in a room.
Yes.
But literally, because I wasn't trained, I'd kind of be like, right, there are some actors here, and I've got some bits of I don't know how to do this, but maybe I can tell you to do it like that. And it was, I don't know how anyone put up with me, but I just sort of learned how to do it in the room.
In the room, yeah.
Yeah.
By doing it, that's amazing.
By doing it. And I had this weird back to front story, because I was making things, and just sort of making my own work. And I was really interested in plays as well. But so sometimes writers would send me things, and I would have like rehearsed readings. So I felt like I was always doing this dual thing of like script development, but making my own stuff. And it was a long time ago, so it was a very different kind of theatre ecology. So people were really confused by this thing of like, well, what do you mean you're devising stuff and you're directing play? I don't understand what you want to do. Like, you should just be clearer about what you want to do, which I didn't do. So I just carried on doing what I was doing. And then sort of gradually, slowly realised that actually this was like a bit of a sort of a bit of a niche skill set, because I had the kind of structural like sense of what a really rigorously written script would look like, but the kind of practical nuts and bolts thing of like, how do you get into a room and make it from scratch? So I suddenly found all these people who were devising work and making their own stuff were like, oh, can you come and work with us? Because you can sort of keep the sense of the whole story and the meaning, and sort of figure out if I want to if I do this, why is that not saying the thing that I want it to say?
Yes.
So I basically was a dramaturg, but didn't know what a dramaturg was and didn't call myself one. And then people started talking about dramaturgs, and I was like, oh, I think I'm a dramaturg as well. And I think most directors in England are dramaturgs because we haven't really had a culture of them until quite recently. So I think most directors have just had to learn how to do that. And then I guess the other important thing from, I guess, the story of learning to do the things that I do, which I'm still learning now, was going into other people's rooms. So like later on, dramaturgy really let me do that, because it's so rare for directors to be able to watch each other work. Like this kind of thing, you just go, how is everyone else doing it? I've got no idea. Because in this country it's all really hierarchical. So people say, well, you're an assistant, and then you're associate, and then you're a co, and then obviously you're just the director. So, and then people stop seeing each other's work, stop being in each other's rooms. And I always felt really sad about that and wanted to find a way to continue being in other directors' processes, which is the other thing that dramaturgy lets me do. But of course, the way I started doing that was assisting and associate directing, and I got to watch loads of brilliant people work, but obviously like Emma Rice would be a big one, and Simon McBurney would be a big one. So they were the two people that I kind of went, oh, that there's a kind of, they felt like they were doing the thing that I'd started to figure out how to try and do. Whereas other directors that I was working with, they were brilliant, but it was very text. And then maybe a movement director would come in or something, but it felt quite compartmentalized. So, and it wasn't devising. So I was just lucky enough to get into a room with the people who were making the work that I loved, basically. So here I am, I think.
And I guess I just kind of wanted to go straight into the process a little bit more. And so now when someone calls you in and to collaborate in a project, is it more clear the role that you're gonna be developing, or is it still come in as a collaborator and then that kind of happens naturally? I mean, the roles are then you get okay, the credits are posteriori.
It's a nightmare. My poor agent, she's just these things come in and she just goes, yeah, but what are you going to be doing? And I go, I don't know yet. And it's really tricky. It's really tricky, but I also really believe that particularly in the early stages of a project, you have to be able to not quite know what you're going to be doing.
Yes.
And I think of all the things probably that I got from Complicite, that was one of the main things, is that quite often you'll walk into the room and you can't see what people's job, you wouldn't be able to walk into the room and go, that's the director,
yes,
that's the lighting designer, there's an actor, that's the stage man. You wouldn't necessarily know what people's roles were at first. I mean, you would after a couple of weeks, but sometimes it's not that clear. I think the only thing that's got clearer to me over the years is that even if I'm being asked to be a dramaturg and or director, there's such a vast difference between doing that job when a script exists and doing that job where a script doesn't exist. So I mean, it sounds really basic, but if there's no script, there's going to be some level of co-authorship over it, because that's just what if you're going in at that stage and your hands are right in the roots of it, then you're going to be co-creating it or co-authoring it in some way. That's the only thing that I really know that it weirdly took me a long time to work out.
But what is it like when you work with a script and if it's someone who is alive and can be in the room, and how how do you navigate that relationship? How, if it's a full collaboration of let's work something out together? I don't know, how do you navigate that relationship with a living author in the room?
It totally depends. I mean, sometimes I actually love it when people bring scripts and they're basically finished and they say, do you want to direct this? Because it's so dreamy sometimes, because it takes such a different bit of your brain and actually a different kind of I don't know how to describe it. Like it's just a different level of commitment to like dredge something out of the pit of the ocean from scratch, like to try and do that again and again and again. You know, like if I was earning my living just by doing that, I'd just be on my knees. It would be horrific because it's so hard, you know, like all the time doing that. So sometimes actually people just give you a script and it's brilliant, and you direct it, which is great. But even with that, I mean, I've just done Jekyll and Hyde for the NT Schools tour, and you know, even sort of quite late into that process, and it's had 2 previous productions, but I'd be sort of calling or emailing Evan, the writer, and just saying, can we take, because you're sort of sitting with the text for a bit and trying to like see what that means and try and find a way through that line. And then if something's still not quite landing for you after 3 weeks, I you know, there's always a sort of possibility to go, actually, is there a different way of saying that? Or can we take that out? But it's more like, it's more tweaks. It's not like getting your hand into its guts, because that's already been done. And then it's brilliant because you've just got this person who authored it, who you can call up and go, why did she say that? Why did she say that to him? And they go, oh, well, because of this. And you go, okay, brilliant, thanks.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, when you can ask directly that question, like, what? Oh, and then you discover. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Because you just can't, nobody understands everything all the time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You've just got someone else's brain, and they wrote it, and they know exactly what they mean, and they can really help you. So.
And if it's a piece of like something like premiering or like a piece of new writing, like you worked recently with April de Angelis on Extinct, is that different than working on a piece that is been already published or that is out there in the world?
Yeah, really different. Yeah, because you're learning about. We learned so much about that in the room. So it was a kind of. We had a kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, a sort of like a map of the show before we started. So we had the structure of it, and we did have the content of it, but because it was so, I mean, people found it quite information dense when we opened it, but it was way more than that when we started. So we were really, with that, it was just a kind of, an exercise of focusing on clarity at every moment, like really thinking and being quite bold about it and going, actually, I think that the aim of this piece is that we're feeling desperate, and so it was just a thing of, we want to express how desperate we feel, and so we're going to throw everything at every moment in the show to try and go, we're all going to die. So it really had that kind of pitch about it of like the sort of the stakes felt for us and for Kieran, who was performing it, like really high. So
I love that it was very unapologetic about it. That was, as an audience member, it felt like quite a relief, because you know, you're not trying to disguise anything. You're just saying, okay, this is how it is, so I'm just going to do it. I don't
feel apologetic about it. I feel desperate and livid and upset and furious, and I really wanted to be allowed to say that. And it was quite interesting, some of the reactions to that, particularly to women being furious and emotional, but also clever, and I've got all the facts up my sleeve. Like, it felt like people were equally annoyed by both those things. Do you know what I mean? Like, why are you lecturing me with all this information? But also, stop being so emotional.
Yeah.
So it was like,
it's true. Yeah, no, it's good.
But it's really interesting what you were saying about it being a relief, because a mate of mine watched it with her daughter, and her daughter's like really on top of all of this stuff. And their reactions were totally different. Like, she said her reaction to it was that she felt absolute despair and panic, but her daughter was like, actually, I find that really galvanizing, and I feel really relieved that someone said that out loud, because this is how I've been feeling for a long time now, and I feel like it doesn't get acknowledged. And so I found that really, she found it really comforting, but her mum found it really distressing.
Yeah. And I think our generation, maybe our generation or like older generations, I'm doing a generalization, but sometimes we don't want to see it. And I think the younger people are a little bit more in tune with it, no? But that's obviously quite generalized. just one more question in terms on that process. Where was then April writing with you in the room as you went on doing that?
Yeah, and obviously, and the thing is, nobody really wants to be doing that because we had 3 weeks rehearsal. So what you want to do is you want to have 3 weeks rehearsal, not 3 weeks of going, but what are we saying and when and why and how? But inevitably, you can't really answer any of those questions until you're in the room and you're looking at it and you're making it. So yeah, it was really active, like writing, rewriting, alongside making and things changing all the time. Yeah, it was quite a lot. And I just say, like, April was so amazing. Like, she was like really, really collaborative and really kind of just really present in the room and really kind of just really up for saying what she wanted to say, which was fab. But yeah, so it was with all the will in the world. Like, you want to know what. We had 3 weeks rehearsal, so you really ideally want to know exactly what something is and then make really minimal changes in the room. But that wasn't what we did at all, because once we were in the room and once we had Kieran there, and it's also like, it's so, of course it's autobiographical about April, but you've also got a person who you didn't know before who's there. She's saying all the stuff now, so there's kind of a different layer with that. So lots of stuff was changing. And yeah, in a dream world, we would have had more time and we'd have had workshops, but everyone, and Kieran, the performer, was like extraordinary. She just went with it all and somehow managed to learn it all, even though we were rewriting it as we went. So yeah.
3 weeks, 3 weeks feels quite a short time. And
yeah, that's amazing. That touches on a question that we also had for you, like, when is the piece finished? Like, when sometimes you have more time, less time, little time, then, or it has just gone on the stage and you go like, oh, I could totally have changed that. Or
it's really hard, isn't it? Like literally. So Jekyll and Hyde, the other show, is in the last week of its tour, and I went to see it on Monday, and I was writing loads of notes. I don't know who I'm writing these notes for. It's the end of the tour, but it's also like a little thing of going, like, because you never know when things are going to have a second life, and so you're kind of looking at it with none of the pressure that you had when you were making it. So you've got really clear eyes, and you can go, actually, that should, no matter how brilliantly something's been received or how well the making has gone, there's always things when you come back to it, isn't there?
They can totally change. So shall we move on a little bit about the international aspect? That we are running these online talks on international makers because, we have foreigners making work in the UK, but we are also interested in international touring. I start to do a lot of work now in Spain. Like this, the term itself of international theatre has developed for us a lot, and we've noticed that you have done a lot of work that you work with people with different cultural heritage, not only like British. I don't know how to describe it. Like, but the thing is, for each one of us has a very different meaning. So we were wondering, like, for you, what is it? What is international theatre for you? International making? How do you connect with that word or term?
Oh God, that's such a massive question, isn't
I
it?
know.
I never really think about it like that.
Yeah.
I always think, well, what am I making? And then and quite often you're not thinking, I'm making an international touring show. Like, you make a show, and then sometimes partners come in and they want to take that show somewhere else, and so you're just sort of making the thing, and then it can sort of go. I mean, even like with sort of slightly bigger shows like Tao of Glass, which we made, which I co-directed with Phillip McBurney for Manchester International Festival. Like, I mean, I'm sure they had people who were sort of partnering with it, but there were, I think, you know, Perth came in later, and so you don't necessarily know where something's going to go. And I'm always really surprised, like, I mean, it's interesting, even with shows like The Encounter, I don't fully think we understood how that show would work until because it's so sonic, obviously,
Yes.
but it's so wordy, like it's verbal storytelling.
Yeah.
And an immersive sound, and actually the imagery on stage is really really simple, really suggestive visual storytelling. So it's not like one of those Complicity shows where it's like, oh, it's really
visual and physical.
Yeah, I mean, it is really visual, but yeah, the kind of the nuts and bolts of the storytelling, it's a lot of words. So I think I'm just always surprised about what translates, because I think with that we definitely had some anxiety about how it would land in countries where English isn't like commonly spoken. So yeah, because it's a lot of words on a screen. But yeah, I think I'm just always surprised at what I think anything can work. You know, I think it just depends whether it's a story that people want to hear or a piece of work that people want to see or want to take to other places. And I suppose in some ways, I guess I feel like I do have a bit more of an affinity with work that's made sort of international, you know, even just like in mainland Europe. Like I got a little you know, the Arts Council used to do those things, international development money stuff. And I really, and I still do really want to adapt this novel, which is a Hungarian novel. So I went to Hungary, I saw loads of theatre, and I met the writer of this book. And then I did adapt one of his other books, but anyway. But while I was there, I was watching all this stuff that as a British theatre maker felt like radical, like so radical. Like I was watching Ibsen plays where like everyone then gets naked and then it starts to snow and then everyone's singing karaoke. And I was like, this is really radical, but I'm watching this in like a very big traditional theatre, sold out. Like what? And I remember having a conversation with this really brilliant dramaturg who was the dramaturg in the venue, and I said, would that work be considered really radical here? And she was like, no. No. And I was a bit like, I really want more of that, you know. So I think I just got that kind of I'm not particularly interested in I don't know, I don't even know how to articulate it, like the rules. I suppose I'm not really interested in the rules. I think if you can find a good way of telling the story, or a way of seeing the story afresh, or a way of the story meaning the thing you want it to mean in this moment, even if that means everyone getting naked and singing karaoke in the snow, then that's the way to do it. You know,
karaoke in the snow naked.
I know, why not? But I feel like we've got we're so bound, and I feel really constricted in some ways by like the fear of, like, I feel like it goes back to, do you remember that article like Billington wrote in The Guardian of like theatre makers? It was like theatre makers from Europe are like infecting our and
rules and
also
how theatre should be.
Yeah, but I also remember, I can't even remember who said this, but someone else, I think it was like maybe a more traditional kind of writer or maybe even director, someone basically saying the problem that we've got at the moment is directors having ideas. And
the concepts. Is that Riz Ahmed concepts?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's in our show. I think I'm currently touring.
I feel like I've got a bit of a beef with concepts, because I think we use them so superficially in this country. Like a concept is like a kind of aesthetic in this country. It's like a little design job, but it's not like, people don't take it far enough, I don't think. So I think I've always sort of been a bit more excited about that work. Yeah. But also simultaneously fearful that I'll be told off for having ideas. It's a bit like, how dare you have ideas?
Yeah, I know. Well,
It does feel like when I remember seeing theatre in Barcelona, and then when I came here, it felt everything has to be about, like it felt like it had to be at some point, then it, kind of go out of it, and we kind of do physical comedy and clown and that kind of stuff. But it felt like it had to be a naturalistic kind of A to B to C, and to, and then just like I felt quite constricted with that. No, we always, like, when we do our shows, we kind of think, let's try and break out of that.
I just don't think anyone ever asks why. Like, I'd really love it if the dramaturgs and literary managers and people in buildings who were in those dialogues with writers would be like, why is that the right form for your story? Like, people pretending to be other people and talking to each other. And why is that the right way of? Because it's such a default in this country that, like, that's how you write plays, or that's what new writing is. I was really struck by these conversations when people are like, that is new writing, and you're like, well, new writing's a lot of things, but we just think it means people pretending to be other people, saying lines that, fourth wall kind of, maybe a monologue if you're lucky. But I do think that's changing, but it's been that way for a long time, it feels.
And do you you were talking about the encounter and adapting it, or did you have to, two questions I guess I have. One is like, did you ever have to translate, like, did you have simultaneous translation, or did you have subtitles on stage for that?
Yeah, it was subtitles. So we'd send the script in advance, and then someone would translate it, and we would check it, and then we would do it.
It would have been very difficult to have like Simon talking, a translator, an interpreter talking.
They would have to be on stage with them.
Yeah, too many words. Yeah, so it was always tight.
Do you travel a lot with your shows?
Totally depends. If I'm really honest, it depends where the show's going and how much I want to go. So, but it also depends on flights, because I try not to fly now. So am I going to go to Australia for a week? I'd really rather not do that, because I just think we've got to start changing the way we do that, right? But if it's like Germany, if it's somewhere I can get to by train, and it also, like, it depends. To be honest, it depends what else is happening in life. Like, I've got a family, I've got, kids, life, other work. So it always depends. I do like going, like, I don't like sort of letting go of a show and it's out there and you're not in touch with it in any way. That always feels really weird to me.
That was a little another question that we have, like, the moment of letting go a show, that you happen to see Jekyll and Hyde and you have notes, and but there is a moment where you gotta, and how do you live that process of letting go of a show that is still is on the road?
I feel like it happens in stages.
Okay.
I feel like there's something to me about, like, once you get into the theatre, that's like the first stage of it, because then everyone's in separate spaces. So you've already got to let go of something, because you can't just sort of take two steps and you're stood next to the actors anymore. It's like there's already then like a separation, and they're probably hearing your voice over a mic, but they probably can't see you anymore because you're sat in like this dark auditorium.
Yeah.
But it probably starts to happen when you get into the theatre and when you start teching. And then certainly, like, around previews, there's definitely like a change then, even though you're still working. There's just that thing of like, you're in the dressing room now, and I suppose it's just a different kind of a different thing with the team, in that the actors are kind of starting to take a different level of ownership over what's happening, and like an independence from you, which is good. I think I used to be like, really like, I can't let go of that. I've got to be around doing warm-ups and like be there when you get off stage. And then I think I just realized that actually that's not helpful or necessary. Like, they're not children. They've got it in their bodies and in their heads by then. So yeah, I think it sort of starts to happen then, and then it shifts, and then you're sort of not physically there at all, and you're just sort of coming back like visiting your own show. But you know, it's just,
I know. It's kind of, I don't know, but it kind of is inevitable to make that association, because when you speak to the directors and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, but you know, it does feel, it kind of feels a little awkward as well if you if you want to try to make notes or stuff like that. But yeah, it's nice. It's the way it is.
Yeah.
So, what else do we have?
I guess I wanted to kind of come back a little bit more into that kind of traveling with the shows, and in the past, when you have traveled, in terms of, I guess, like just thinking about the audiences and receiving the work, and anything that has surprised you about the work that has been received in different ways, or like anything that you were like you didn't expect it at all, and really has, you know.
I mean, just the thing of realizing that theatre etiquette is not a universal global thing. Like everyone is different, and I was really surprised in France that people like move around quite a lot. Do you know what I mean? And loads of people left before the end of the show, and I was like, well, did they hate the show? And everyone was like, no, they've just booked dinner.
What?
Of their evening, but they were like, oh, this show's a bit longer than I was expecting. Oh well, let's go and get dinner. It was sort of brilliant, and also like then like the etiquette of like applause I find really fascinating, like the kind of endless curtain calls in some countries.
Yes,
it's the first time it happened. You're like, oh my god, they love it, we've made an amazing show, we've had like 5 curtain calls, and then you're just like, oh, that's just how they do it here.
Is this America?
Is this America? Is this like America or South America or Spain?
No, I was thinking like Germany.
Okay, wow.
So many, like loads. And then when we were doing Shunkin, and we it was like a co-pro with Setagaya Public Theatre in Tokyo. Yeah. So we opened it in Tokyo, and it felt like really delicate as well, because it was also like an English-Japanese co-production of like, it's basically like, I guess Tanazaki's like kind of like Shakespeare. So like really, you know, I felt like we could have broken something. So it was like, oh, but the sort of absolute silence after the show finished, a really long silence before anyone started applauding, and our translator said it's because people don't want to get it wrong, so they have to. You'll never get that thing in Japan of like accidental early applause, because everyone wants to really make sure that it's the end.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
It's really nice, because we don't really have silence at the end of a show.
Yes.
If we do, it's like really awkward.
Yeah, when that happens, like, oh, is it better?
I think just that really, like just the different ways everyone, I can't think of anything else. I'm always surprised how similar things are as well, you know.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we had that. When we were in America, we felt like stars. Suddenly we were like, oh my god, you know, this is it. This is the key. This is the ticket. This is the ticket. But no, it wasn't. You were.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. It's been amazing talking to you.
Thank you.
So brilliant. And
we ask always something at the end for everyone.
Oh yes, please give Diego. I don't want to call it advice, but we have a lot of students watching these talks, and we love to. We always ask maybe either what was the worst advice that you were given, or the best, you know, and maybe pass it on or not pass it on.
I feel like I'm going to be really naughty. I'm going to say the worst advice I was ever given was I was in a job interview, and it was for a regional theatre award, And I didn't know something. It was something about a play, and I didn't know it. And I was also really frazzled because I was working like a kind of early shift to like try and earn money and make theatre. And someone on the panel gave this anecdote about how when someone else on the panel realised that they didn't really know the work of Ibsen, they hired a cottage and they went away and they sat in a cottage until they really got to know Ibsen's work. And that was their advice to me. And at the time I was a bit like, how am I going to pay my rent if I do that? So that's the worst advice I've ever been given.
Wow.
In that it was entirely unactionable for me. Do you know? Like, maybe if I'd been able to action that advice, it would have been the best advice. And I'd have loved to have hired a cottage and just sat and read plays, but that was not feasible.
Yeah,
so it was
very out of touch.
Very bad advice. It was very out of touch advice. And I don't know what the best, I mean, I kind of think you just have to like do it for yourself, really, don't you?
Yeah.
I think, you know, there's no, all people will tell you is how they do things or what they know. So it's, you know, you sort of have to find it out for yourself, I think.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much for your time.
It's lovely talking to you.
It's lovely to see you. Yeah, thank you. Good luck with the rest of the tour.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.